What is the worst casting decision in the history of film or TV? The fake baby on American Sniper. John Wayne as Genghis Khan and the Conqueror. The fact that Willem Dafoe has never played the Joker is a travesty. Remember that movie where Josh Peck and Chris Hemsworth were supposed to be brothers? Edit. Typo. Didn't actually end up getting cast, but Nicolas Cage was almost cast as Aragorn in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Can you imagine? Imagine this. It's the mid-80s. You're making a badass action movie about an immortal Scottish warrior who has spent 4 centuries defeating others of his kind in single combat. You sign Sean Connery, and cast him as a ducking Egyptian pretending to be a Spaniard. Then cast Christopher Lambert as the ducking Highlander. Mickey Rooney as MR. She in Breakfast at Tiffany's. 8 years ago I said Chris Evans as Captain America. I stand corrected. Valerian. Both leads were horribly miscast. They looked like children, not adults, and I never bought them for a second. I think with different leads the movie could have worked and not been a financial disaster. Topher Grace as Venom. What were they thinking? Everyone in The Last Airbender. Bonus points for also having terrible screenwriter and director decisions. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Guy is talented, but man was that performance awful. Milhouse Van Houten as Fallout Boy. Because of his disappearance when filming, the movie was scrapped and the producers went bankrupt. Moyes registered Sines Arias as Bonzo in Ender's Game. The bullying scenes don't work when Bonzo is half the size of Ender. Whoever was put in charge of casting Valerian. I love the world building and the plot. It was pretty well written, but damn, the lead screwed it over. Abigail Breslin as Baby in the ABC Dirty Dancing remake. It was ducking awful. I really disliked Leto as the Joker. Ita also Edward G. Robinson as Dathan on the 10 Commandments has always bugged me. Where's your Messiah now? Nya. Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan in 50 Shades movies. Painful how little chemistry those two had. Remember that time on that 70s show where they replaced Laurie and didn't expect anyone to notice? Will Smith's kid in Day the Earth Stood Still. Not casting Danny DeVito as Pikachu in the new Pokemon movie. Nicole Kidman as a neurosurgeon in Days of Thunder. She was 23 at the time and there was absolutely nothing neurosurgeon-y about her. For a cameo, Jimmy Fallon in Band of Brothers. Takes me right out of the scene. Oddly enough, you'd think David Schwimmer would do the same, but he totally knocked that out of the park. John Malkovich in Being John Malkovich. I didn't find him believable. Everyone in the Percy Jackson movies being way too old, plus being too lazy to give Alexandra Daddario not even getting a wig out on to make blonde a blonde wig to play Annabeth. At least, edit, fixed my English. IDK what I was even trying to say. Eric Foreman as Eddie Brock. Kristen Stewart as Snow White. I get that she was supposed to be edgy but really? Maggie Gyllenhaal as Rachel in The Dark Knight. I couldn't let that go. Like, it might have been fine if she played Rachel in both movies, but pretending that she's supposed to be Katie Holmes in The Dark Knight was just bizarre. Ashton Kutcher in 2.5 Men. Paul Schneider as Sarmak Brendan Oixa in Parks and Rec. The role itself was terrible, but he was also not a great fit to even attempt to make it work. He was not believable at all as this ladies' man and felt uncomfortable in every scene. Then in contrast you have Chris Pratt as Andy, who was supposed to be a character you didn't like, but Pratt was able to make the character great enough that he wasn't written off after the first season as planned. Michael Huesman as Dario Naharis in GOT. He is a good actor, but when they already had introduced the character with Ed Skrein, it just ruins that character because every time I see Dario I will think that I sent the real Dario Naharis. Shia LaBeouf as Indiana Jones Jr. I don't dislike the guy and think his meme-only status is a little undeserved. Before 2008 he seemed to have this niche as reluctant underachieving heroes. He was good in Constantine, and he was good in the film adaptation of Holes. Despite not being overweight like in the book, In Transformers he was completely believable as a guy screaming for his life with giant robots fighting around him. But in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he's supposed to be this tough motorcycle guy spouting one-liners. I remember thinking to myself that I could honestly beat this guy in a fight. I was ready to throw hands with a fictional character to prove a point. The girl who played Lily Potter in DHII. How many times in the book does it say that Harry has Lily's green eyes, and then they cast a kid with brown eyes? It annoys me every time I watch it. Tom Cruise in the recent Mummy. Sad that he killed that franchise. I really enjoyed Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Marky Mark in The Happening. Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese. Jason Clarke as John Connor. Emilia Clarke as Sarah Connor. Matt Smith as whatever the hell that was supposed to be. Let's just draw a big line through Genesis, shall we? Cameron Diaz in Gangs of New York and Heather Graham in From Hell were both bad and distracting. Mary Corleone in The Godfather Part 3. Ducking cringe. Didn't read every comment, but has anyone said Cameron Diaz, Gangs of New York? Because that should be number 1. Sylvester Stallone as Judge Dredd. Carl Urban is the perfect casting as Judge Dredd, however. How someone thought Nicolas Cage was going to be a good Ghost Rider, and how come it actually wasn't that bad? George Clooney as Batman. The nipples. Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort being siblings in one movie and lovers in the next. Natalie Portman in Thor. Seriously, she and Chris has no chemistry whatsoever, and I don't understand the studio's decision to cast big name to a small role like that. Kat Dennings could do the work too. Rupert Everett as Dr. Claw. People complain about Matthew Broderick, but I can at least see why he was cast. His bumbling, over-the-top doofus shtick could have worked for Inspector Gadget. I mean, it didn't dart, but it could have. I get what they were going for, but Dr. Claw, one of the greatest children's villains of recent times, as a flamboyant gay fashion designer type. Dukes of Hazzard when they traded in Bo and Luke for their cousins Coy and Vance. Londoners have never forgiven Dee Van Dyke for his Cockney accent in Mary Poppins. 50 years is a long time to bear a grudge. Forgive him for the sequel this December. Sean Connery, the Scottish actor, as the token-only Spaniard character in The Highlander, a movie set primarily in Scotland. Edit. I guess I've been using the word token wrong. Logan Lerman as Percy Jackson. Ike. He was 17 when filming the first movie, where Percy was supposed to be 12. Casting was part of the reason that the movie was terrible compared to the books. Emma Watson as Belle. I adore her as a humanitarian and an actress, but just no. Finn Jones as Iron Fist in Netflix series. I don't know if it's his acting or the scenario, but something about him really suck in that series. So here is the consensus so far. 1. Genghis Khan as Bruce Wayne. 2. Mickey Rooney as MR. Hiroshima in Breakfast in Tiffany. 3. 15,000 pixels on George Lucas's mainframe as Jar Jar Binks. 4. Eric Foreman as Eddie Brock in Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. 5. Jake Gyllenhaal as Katie Holmes in The Dark Knight. Update. 6. Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher, because in the book Jack Reacher is not in the closet. Update 2. 7. Ryan Reynolds as Det. Pikachu in Homicide. Life in Saffron City. Update 3. 8. Michael Gambon as Richard Harris who won't croak before we milk the last 5 books out. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex. Geez, that was hard to watch. I was going to say Denise Richards as a nuclear scientist. Anything with Will Smith's children. Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher. In the books Reacher was over 6 feet tall, a 250-pound badass. Tom Cruise, not so much. Totally ruined the mental image I had from reading the books. Lindsay Lohan as Elizabeth Taylor. Just why? How has nobody said Guy Pearce as Peter Wayland in Prometheus? Should we hire an old actor? Duck no. Let's just hire a young guy and put the worst makeup imaginable on him instead. Allowing Chris Evans to quit being Captain America. New live action Kim Possible cast. The fact Danny DeVito hasn't gotten to be Spider-Man yet. Russell Crowe as Javert. Couldn't sing, couldn't act. Javert's supposed to be menacing, but it was more like your 7th grade history teacher dressing up to explain Napoleonic France. Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher. The character is 6'5" in the books, but they have some tiny dude playing him. That being said, Cruise did a wonderful job portraying the character. On the opposite spectrum, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Hugh Jackman is 6'3". Wolverine is 5'2" in the comics. It's a terrible miscast, but he did a great job as Wolverine, even with the handicap of being too big for the role. Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell. What the duck is Keanu doing in the company of Anthony Hopkins, Gary Oldman, Richard E. Grant, and even Winona Ryder in Coppola's Dracula? Similarly, Keanu as Don John in Much Ado About Nothing, Branagh, Emma Thompson, even Michael Keaton all work. Keanu doesn't. Keanu is good in the right roles. I'll vouch for A Scanner Darkly, but these are not the right roles. As far as TV, casting an Indian English actor, Naveen Andrews, as Iraqi Saeed Jarrah in Lost was pretty bad, though fortunately Andrews is a good actor and salvaged the role as best he could. He was one of my 2 favorites, but he doesn't look Iraqi at all, obviously. Molly Ringwald as Franny Goldsmith in The Stand. I could barely finish it because of her terrible acting. Remember when they cast a bunch of white people in the Dragon Ball movie? That. Topher Grace as Venom. I can still feel the disappointment in that casting decision. Definitely Denise Richards as Dr. Christmas Jones. Pretty sure she learned her lines right before they said action. Tom Hanks as Robert Langdon. Langdon is supposed to be 6'. Tom Hanks, as much as I love him, is not 6'. When they replaced Roderick on Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Michael C. Hall as JFK in The Crown. That accent was unfortunate. I love him and everything else. Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness. Seriously, Khan was not a tall white guy. Let's face it, Jason Momoa was born to place that role. I can't believe they didn't use Mads Mikkelsen for Euron Greyjoy in GOT. Instead we got a baba-faced frat boy spewing D-jokes 24/7. I mean, come on. That one weird looking white dude in that Michael Jackson thing from a while ago. I forget the name, but he was an awful choice for MJ. Edit. Joseph Fiennes. Jake Gyllenhaal as the full stop Prince full stop of full stop Persia. The guy that replaced Dario Naharis on Game of Thrones. The first guy was so exotic looking. He looked like he came from a different part of the Seven Kingdoms. The second guy was so generic looking. He looked like Jon Snow or Robb Stark. Not the actor's fault, but it was such a bummer. Both Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves in Dracula. Without them that film would have had a real shot at becoming a true horror masterpiece. Don't know what was up with them in that one BTW. They're not usually horrible actors. Winona was fantastic in Stranger Things. Gary Oldman in Tiptoes. Gary Oldman is awesome, but he can't save this movie, and you know he really tried, but he's just not a midget. Brett Favre as Brett Favre in There's Something About Mary. Donald Trump when he played Sloth in The Goonies. Gangs of New York, one of the most amazing casts to ever share the screen, acting under one of the greatest directors to ever wear the title, and Cameron Diaz. Michael Gambon as Dumbledore. Never read the books and butchered the character Imo. Everybody points to the "Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" which is the most obvious example, but just his portrayal of the character from top to bottom felt wrong. Book Dumbledore was always calm, serene and whimsical even in very serious situations. Gambon's performance was one filled with annoyance and anger that just seemed antithetical to my understanding of the character of Albus Dumbledore. I thought Richard Harris' portrayal was much truer to the books. Johnny Depp as Grindelwald. Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka. I still want a movie with Christopher Walken as Willy Wonka. Perting well-known pop star and goofy-looking ducker Ed Sheeran and Got was a choice. Johnny Depp as Tonto in The Lone Ranger. Emma Stone as a Chinese woman in Aloha. Kirk Lazarus as Staff Sergeant Lincoln Osiris. I mean, he wasn't even black. Michael Gambon as Dumbledore.